My life shifted when I moved to America. There are lots of new things to remember and to learn. I have to remember new addresses, new phone numbers, new emails, passwords, social security, insurances, then the list goes on. I have to admit it was a bit overwhelming, but that combined with homesickness, it was a challenge. Now that I've been living here for a while, I've found that there are habits and practices that I do regularly to keep me connected to where I came from. Thinking good thoughts and memories about the Philippines always puts me in a good mood. Today, I would like to share my top 3 habits or practices that I do regularly to maintain Filipino culture in my home. I find these practices essential because it keeps me grounded and makes me gain more appreciation not only for what I have now, but also for what I had back then. In our generation, it is so easy to get overwhelmed even with just daily mundane tasks like cleaning the house, putting dishes away, the commute to work, getting gas, etc. That's why I think it's imperative to find or do something that will de stress and relax your nerves. And for me, that's food. Which brings me to my first practice or habit. I like to cook Filipino food. Is that the cover? Eh, yan na ang bistik ko. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I love to cook Filipino food.
And the whole house smell like fish.
My family, I think they prefer Filipino food over American food. In fact, I think my son is growing up with an Asian palate. He prefers pancit over mac and cheese. He loves lumpia and chicken adobo. Him and my husband loves tinola too. There are times that it's hard to find ingredients, but I still manage to whip up something that tastes like authentic Filipino food. I realize that some Filipino food requires time to prepare. For example, to make lumpia, you need to mix the ground meat with chopped vegetables, season it, let it sit for it to be more flavorful, and that's just half of the job because after that, you can now start the rolling process. Back home, we usually take that as an opportunity to catch up with one another. We would share stories while rolling lumpia. We would crack jokes while chopping veggies for a pancit. We would share some good news and bad news about work or school life. These things I never really thought of until I left to live here in America. I realized that at the end of the day, it's not the food. Partly, maybe, it's the food, but it's those little moments where the family connects and gathers and laugh and cry and celebrate each other. That's what really matters. It's almost like Thanksgiving, but more frequent in the Philippines. We always find time to gather every time there is a special occasion. I always have nostalgic moments every time I make Filipino food. I love to tell stories about my childhood to my husband while I cook. I also realize that most of my unforgettable memories in the Philippines always involves food. There is some Filipino tradition that I wanted to pass on to my son, like cooking pancit on birthdays. That's just one of the very common one. Personally, I believe if you want to get to know a particular country, you need to start with the food they eat. A lot of Filipino food is rich with stories about the culture and the history. You're never gonna get bored learning about the culture while having lumpia and pancit. Second habit I always try to do is calling regularly. I always try to reach out whether through FaceTime, Skype, or calling through Facebook Messenger. This is a bit of a challenge for me because of the hour differences. I'm on the East Coast, so that's 12 hours difference. Sometimes I have to schedule or let them know I'm calling ahead of time for them to prepare. I always keep in contact with my grandma, and old people tend to go to bed early. So if I missed her in the morning, which is nighttime here, I usually just adjust my schedule at night so I can free up some time before I put my son to bed. Calling regularly is important for me because not only I can connect to them in real time, I can also practice my Tagalog. I like that my son recognizes my family in the Philippines. I would sometimes make my son talk to my grandma and tell him to tell her about his new toys. Yun na. Binuhat na yung ano. Okay, show your bike.
Is it
Babe,
heavy? Wow, that's beautiful.
is it heavy?
How do you do it?
Ayun, ipapakita niya daw.
Naiintindihan niya.
Siyempre nakakaintindi na. Siyempre nakakaintindi na yan. Ano? Oh, meron pa daw siya dun sa baba.
That's amazing.
Pakita daw niya yung helmet niya. Or show your helmet to Lola. Say, Lola.
Lola.
Sige daw, pakita daw.
Say, ito
Ito
ang
ang
helmet ko.
helmet ko.
Ito ang helmet ko.
Ito ang helmet ko.
Oh, show it. Say, ito ang helmet ko.
With the helmet there ko.
Ganda, ganda.
He would try to show off new tricks or toys that he have. They would try to talk to him in Tagalog, but he would just usually look at me with a confused face. So I would just try to translate. Closeness in the Filipino family is one of the things I wanted my child to witness and experience and hopefully be able to pass on when he have his own family in the future. Did you know that an average Filipino speaks a minimum of 3 languages? Every province in the Philippines has its own language. We call it dialect. In the south, where my family is from, they speak Visaya. When they move up north in Pampanga, they have to learn Kapampangan, which is the language spoken there in that province. Some were able to adopt, like my aunts and uncles, but my grandma, on the other hand, because of age, had a bit of a hard time learning Kapampangan. While me and my cousins, we were born there in Pampanga, so we know the Kapampangan language. When we go to school, everyone speaks Kapampangan, our friends speak Kapampangan, so it's easy for us to learn the dialect. But when I come home, my grandma speaks to me in Bisaya, so we have to learn that too. In the house, we speak Bisaya. When we go outside, we speak Kapampangan. And then in school, they teach us English at an early age. So I'm not saying that everyone in the Philippines have the same story as my family, but people always move out of their province to find new opportunity. Back then, everyone wants to go to Manila because of jobs and opportunity. And then now, everyone wants to go to Clark in Pampanga. It's becoming popular because of the outsourcing job that they have there. People move in and out of their provinces, which will cost you to expand your linguistic skills. Ka, busag-busag mo man. And last but not the least is looking up old photos. If you've been following me on Instagram or Facebook, you'll know that I love sharing old photos. I like sharing old photos of me and my family. I love looking at photos, whether it's digital or not, although I prefer the old-fashioned printed ones. Before I left and moved here, I gathered some photos that I like and would like to bring with me here in America. I realized that life in the Philippines was pretty laid back. I had a 9 to 5 job that I've been on for a while. I was able to travel and visit my aunt in Austria. I think that was one of the highlights of my 20s. I'm forever grateful for that opportunity to travel and see the world. It seems like that trip was the preface of what's going to be my life like in America. So I'm really thankful for that. I considered looking at old photos as a way for me to connect to my family back home because it makes me want to think back when I was young, my insecurities, the job that I learned to love, the friends and acquaintances that left a mark in my life. It made me realize how far I have come in life. The not so very smart decisions that I made before, looking back at it now, it all actually kind of makes sense. The relationship that failed now actually have meaning. Me asking why is this happening to me before, now I actually have the answer. So thinking back at it now, my past wasn't that bad after all. The crying, the tears, laughter, hugs, they're all for a reason. These photos brings emotions. In fact, I think personally, that is the main goal of photography, is to capture the moment and the emotions of people that are in the photo. And hopefully when you look back at the photo, you'll feel the same way too. You'll feel the emotion you felt while in that moment in that photo. And that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments section down below if you want to add more to this list. I will see you on my next video. Bye.